Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mom Talk. I am your host, Crystal Galladay, also known as the Fun Finder for Education. And I started this outlet for us moms, those who are interested in motherhood and those that support us, because as mothers, we feel like sometimes the things that we're going through, we're the only ones going through it, right? But that is absolutely not the case. Once you get your tribe, once you talk about the things that you're going through, you realize that it's not that hard. And you have your tribe to help you throughout life. So we talk about a lot of different topics. And me, like, I have a very powerful network. So I felt like bringing the people that I have in my life to you all. And I was doing it monthly. Now I'm doing it every other month. So now we are in February 2022. The next one will be in April 2022. And today we have a lovely guest here. Her name is Milagros Brown. She is the founder of After November. And we're going to talk about the intersection of motherhood and social change. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Milagros. And Milagros, can you please tell us more about yourself? Like, how would people describe you, and what else do you want people to know about you besides the fact that you're the founder of After November, and including that, and also you're a guest mom expert. So you're a mom. So let's talk about you.
Well, thanks for having me, Crystal. I'm so happy to be here and so admire everything that you do. We were talking before this recording started, Mom Talk started, about just all the ways that you connect people to resources. So, I'm inspired by all the work that you do. And yeah, I mean, to share a little bit about myself, I will, since this is amongst friends, I'm a Scorpio, so, nobody knows us really that well. We are multiple layers. But I would say, just to give kind of a full picture of my story as to how we got here to After November. So I grew up, my mom is Dominican and my dad is African American from New York. And my parents divorced when I was really little. And my mom remarried my stepfather, who is a white guy from Indiana. So I've had kind of the blessing of having different perspectives in terms of origin stories of people and like the melting pot that we call America, an immigrant mother, and, two kind of different stories when it comes to the father figures in my life. So I would say that I always came from a political family. Fast forward to my adult life, I came to DC, I worked in politics, and I started working in fundraising. That's where my career began. I was doing political fundraising for the Democratic Party. I worked at sort of the high levels of fundraising with donors who were giving a bunch of money, and in return, they got a bunch of access to the members. So it was really an interesting place to be in my early 20s to kind of witness the intersect of like corporate influence, just generational wealth, and people who were making policy decisions on behalf of all Americans, and what they were having kind of regular conversations with, and what those rooms looked like, and how diverse or generally undiverse they were. So I worked in political fundraising for about 10 years and then left politics altogether, did a number of different things, but always had kind of this spirit of supporting women, working for small businesses, and having sort of my own entrepreneurial dreams myself. Fast forward to 2020, the year that we are all still kind of living in the shadows and echo of. And from watching the news, and as I'm sure most of us were doing, kind of yelling at the TV with some great frequency, I decided to stop yelling at my husband just to get my frustrations out and kind of take that spirit of wanting to do something positive and impactful with the experience I'd had from working in politics, and affect the conversation in some way that I thought would be different and unique, because obviously lots of people were talking in 2020, right? There was a presidential election, there were lots of pundits. So that's where After November was born. It was really just an outlet for me, and also a place to kind of shift the lens of what we think about in terms of political participation. There's so much energy focused on getting people to the polls, but what is not really kind of understood in the larger public sphere is what happens after elections, right? After the election is the life that we all live in, right? We invest faith, vote for the people. If we decide to even vote, we vote for the people that we think will represent us and have our own best interests at heart. But then what happens after we do that, right? Like, how much attention is really given to the work that they do outside of when it becomes a big national crisis, like in the small moments in the day to day. That's sort of like what happens after an election. So that's why I named it After November, to reframe how we think about our involvement, not just on election day, but following the elections.
I love that, because when I first heard the name, I'm like, what does After November mean? And then like getting to know you more, I'm like, oh, like this is real, because the election is a big hoopla about it. And then after, it's like, all right, we're just going through the motions, but there's so much more that has to be done after. And I've realized that with being a mom and advocacy for our youth and stuff like that. And my husband's a Scorpio, so I get it in regards to you being a Scorpio. And then also relate from this fact that we're both from New York too. So
Right.
I'm happy that you are here. So tell us about, what is the intersection between motherhood and social change? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, moms, women, we're change agents, like in everything that we do, right? Like the women who are here, who are part of Mom Talk, I'm sure that there are a million ways in which we have poured into our families and tried to make life as best for and comfortable and positive for the people that we love. We just inherently, that is what we do, consciously, begrudgingly, whether we're exhausted or not, we show up, right? Like it's just part of our DNA. Moms, women, you know, we are teachers, we're social workers, we are counselors, you know, therapy, educate, like all the spaces in which it impacts the life and the future of generations to come. Women are predominantly, we show up in majority in those spaces. So inherently, like a mom is a social change agent in your day to day, when you're like packing that lunch, or when you're advocating for your child at school, or when you know, you're talking to your husband about your finances because you're trying to lay out a foundation for your future. All of those things are inherently part of social change in a really micro way. And so I think that like when we think about social change and we think about politics, it feels really big. We're in the middle of Black History Month, so you know, obviously we study, you know, our the people who have pioneered the moment that we're living in now, the backs that we stand on. But sometimes social change just looks much smaller. It's really all the ways that you're showing up. And so I think part of this intersection of motherhood and social change is really like recognizing how moms are showing up in all of these micro ways, and making politics much softer and meeting people where they are, right? Like the dialogue doesn't have to be so big, so driven by CNN headlines, but really bringing it back down to your day to day, and how the policies that we're living in affect your life on the day to day level.
And I was feeling the hats just going on top of my head in regards to the different roles that I wear, as we wear, as women, as mothers, and as just people in society. And we're like the unsung heroes, if you think about it, because behind these successful men or things that are happening, we know there's some women behind it. So I appreciate you highlighting that aspect, because sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we're doing. And it reminded me of a thing that I really believe in, and it's a part of my personal development, which is the compound effect, right? You mentioned it's some of the things that we do that may be small to others, but it makes a big reward. So if you do something small every day and it compounds upon one another, it's going to equal to a big change and get you closer to that end goal. So I want us to know, as women, as mothers, as people in society, that what we do matters. And we may think like our role may be small in something, but it can mean a huge difference to someone. Like I know I could speak to several of you in here with little things that you do every day that are very helpful to others. For example, like Jasmine here, she does an icebreaker in a group that a couple of us are in, and that brings people together and also have us reminisce and also remember some of the good times and just gets to know each other. And it's, something small like that can mean a lot to someone else or help build that sense of community or even change, So I know you talked about why you started After November. Can you tell us some of the things that are happening now with After November or what's coming up with After November that we can, learn more about or even raise our hand to work with you on?
Yeah, sure. So, so After November, when I started it, it was an Instagram handle. It was really just like a personal project for me. And the more that I got involved in sharing information, a little community started to form. And, I was having conversations with women that I didn't know from across the country, talking about how they were inspired to be involved in the 2020 elections. I think that what I really feel powerfully about After November is that politics, being someone who like has worked in DC, lives in DC, right? Like we are surrounded by an unusual amount of people who are policy savvy or tapped into watching the Sunday morning talk shows, or in some way they may be lobbyists or involved in the political spectrum, but that is not America, right? And it's like, it is a very much a bubble, and and most people don't exist with checking the news headlines or knowing what votes are going to happen on the congressional floor. It's sort of like an anomaly here that we exist in. And so my hope is that After November brings the mystery, demystifies what happens in DC, demystifies what politics looks like, but also is a change agent in terms of who has access post elections, really going back to kind of the framing that I gave earlier. So I'll just tell a little story. I know it's a little diversion from your question, but
No, it's totally fine. Go ahead.
okay. So as I said, when I first came to DC, I was in my early 20s and I was a political fundraiser and I worked on the Senate side. So I might have been like 22, 23. And I, was at the time using a BlackBerry, right? I don't think that like anyone was using an iPhone as like a regular mode of communication, but I was using my BlackBerry and messaging with US senators, right? Just like they would come over, I would spend a significant chunk of time with them doing fundraising calls for money. And I had peers who were working on the Hill who were like legislative assistants or, working at entry-level jobs. And so my entry-level job as someone who was raising money gave me direct access to US senators, of which there's only 100 in the country, right? It's a very small club as opposed to the House, as opposed to the congressional side. And so at the time, I didn't really realize kind of how powerful that is, that because my job involved money, I had intimate relationships with members of the US Senate, as opposed to my peers who were actually working on policy, who never got to see their senator. Or if they did, it would be in a staff meeting once a week in which like they wouldn't actually have a conversation with their senator. So the point is that my hope is that by shedding a light on how you can access your member, right? Like people who give money recognize that that's a quid pro quo relationship. They know that they're going to write a check and in return, they're going to get at least an ear. Like it's illegal to write a check and influence policy, right? That's like very much against the law. But you can write a check and that can be a 15-minute phone call, right? Like that you get because someone knows that you're important enough that they need to like take the phone call. So a lot of people don't realize that, right? Like after the election's over, after all the money's been raised, the people who are still getting the 15-minute phone calls or the 1-hour lunches or whatever are the people who are writing checks. But perhaps if the public, right, like called about the issues that are affecting them on the day-to-day, which you can do. Anyone can call their member of Congress. You can call your local elected officials. You can call your Senate office. Like, their job is to be in service to people. It's literally like when you are elected to a federal or a statewide office or to your county, like you're gonna take an oath, and in your oath of office, you are becoming a public servant. You are in service to the public. But because the impact and influence of money has so distorted the who actually gets to have the ear of those who influence the policy that we all live under, public servants, the term has become distorted and lost some of the power of its meaning. So, through After November, I think, like, through giving easy to digest pieces of information, my hope is that more of us, moms, dads, those of us who aren't watching the Sunday morning talk shows, who just are living our lives and have real concerns or needs or hopes for our children in the future, can feel more empowered to reach out to those members of Congress to start taking up more space, really taking up more space and empowering ourselves with the rights that we already have to be heard by the people who represent us. And sometimes it feels like we have to yell and shout and scream, right? And that's unfortunate that that's where we're at, where we feel like we have to scream so much to just get attention. So yeah, I think it's the goal and the hope for After November is making the information to the general public more palatable, easier to understand, and to encourage greater engagement beyond just showing up on election day.
I love that, because for me, politics is heavy, right? To a point where sometimes I'm like, I kind of shut it out. However, it's kind of hard because my husband has CNN in one of our rooms, which you call the entertainment room, on 24/7, to a point where my 6-year-old is like, he understands, like, even before he really knew what CNN was, he was like, he'll see the sign and be like, oh, breaking news, like, and he likes watching it too. So with you breaking down politics and make it more palatable for people, and also identifying the fact that you can have access by calling your political officers that are in place and making a difference in that way and doing other things, I think it's very helpful, and it levels the playing game somewhat, and also opens the door for entry. And I know, like, with me, I've had experience with the advocacy for our youth through a program that some parents could be a part of. And there's also things like you can testify on different topics and sign up to talk about, like, if you're advocating for something. For example, I was advocating for more money for mental health awareness and education and stuff, and for our youth and for in schools and after school care and stuff like that. So it is possible for your everyday person to make a difference. So I'm happy that your organization is in place, and I want more people to hear about it because we need to know.
I mean, this is just maybe it's a bit silly of an analogy, but I'm just going to share the story because it makes it really simple. When I first started working for a congressman as an intern in North Carolina, I worked in his district office. And so part of my job was to, like, field some constituent calls, call incoming questions. And so there was a woman who called because she was doing a church fundraiser. And part of her annual church fundraiser was that they needed these, like, very specific pineapples to come in from a part of South America. And she needed the pineapples, maybe had gotten caught in customs. I may be kind of blurring the edges of the story because I don't exactly remember it, but I remember that we helped facilitate getting those pineapples through customs so she could have her church fundraiser. I mean, it was just such a small thing, but imagine, like, if a bunch of people started calling about their pineapples, right? Like, then pineapples would be a huge priority, right? So I think it's kind of a really silly analogy as it relates to, like, topics that we all really care about, right? Like police reform and access to educational resources and, things that are far more weightier and important. But if we knew collectively that not only can we show up in mass to vote, right? Like 165 million people voted in the last election, give or take. What if 165 million people were calling about stuff that was going on in their communities that they needed help with? It doesn't have to be so tracked. It doesn't, I mean, we're all, there's lots of things that right now are super important. The Supreme Court, there's, a number of pressing huge political issues, but like the small stuff that impacts your life on the day to day, just imagine if like your federal legislators were paying attention to those things because you were calling and saying like, this isn't okay, or this threatens my child's well-being at school. Like I need greater attention or greater funding for school counselors or social workers because, this is impacting my kids, my future, right? The legacy that I'm leaving. Imagine if we were calling, not in mass, not linear, but just calling, right? Like, because that's the resource that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to be able to call our federal agents and get information and resources. So imagine if beyond just showing up on that Tuesday, that we were actually picking up the phone and calling those numbers. Someone has to respond to you. Like, it's just about taking up space. And the more that we get to take up space as voters, then all of that money, all of those like, 400 people who have all this money and influence, their space in essence has to become smaller, right? Like it's sort of the math of it. So I feel like Jasmine would appreciate this. Right now, the math is not mathing. So, so yeah, that's my passion project, right? It's just like educating people that it really, no need is too small. It doesn't have to feel like, oh, I'm just going to call because on social media, there's this big campaign and like, I need to sign up this change.org petition or whatever. Like, just take up space. Like, just start, if we could just start shifting that conversation to just all of our needs, then maybe they would actually start paying attention to our actual needs versus these big CNN kind of moments that are happening. So
the breaking news that they have breaking news every day. Yes.
Yeah.
No. So how can people keep in contact with you and get engaged with After November?
Yeah, so I have the Instagram handle and there's a web page that I believe I'm collecting emails for people who are interested. I had a baby. He's almost 8 months now. So he's a wonderful joy and certainly one of the reasons that I'm working on After November, but he also kind of stymied a bit of the progress. But you can go to the website or you can go to the Instagram handle and follow, and we will be kind of kicking things off, hopefully summer to end of this year with getting some real action items going.
I'm very excited for that. And I am following all those who RSVP'd for Mom Talk. They also received your handle for following you as well on Instagram. So remember to hit that follow button for After November. So I want to open the floor up to questions because I know we can talk forever and ever, and I have your number. So I want to share you with the Mom Talk audience. Yeah. So if anyone has a question or a comment, they could come off of mute. This is your time that I welcome you to do that. And while people are thinking of their questions and or about to come off of mute, I also want to let you know that we also in Mom Talk have an opportunity to do a round robin so you can talk about the great things that are going on in your life, because I truly believe in community, that we all can support one another in some way, even if it's just a share or referring somebody to someone else. So get that ready as well. So without further ado, if you have any questions for Milagros, now's your time.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, I was just, I wanted to say, I don't know, I think I just pushed the button again. Please hold.
Okay. We can hear you. We can't see you. I saw you were on and you went off. It's okay.
There it is. Yeah. I was trying to get out of the glare. But I want to say that this After November that I'm hearing about is interesting, and it's right on time because I too keep my TV on CNN all the time. And, I'm the one that's like, let's just say all the tragedies we're seeing, all these people getting gunned down. And I'm like, that's not right. From my bedroom, that's not right. That's not right. But that's where it ends with me.
Right.
And never even thought to call anybody or write anybody, and your platform actually I'm comfortable going to your platform to see what I can do through your platform to let my voice be heard, and then also to share it. Simply by knowing Crystal makes me comfortable with after November. So I thank you for this platform, and I'm definitely going to blast it out there because you're right. If we all call about our pineapples, pineapples will be the thing. So
Right.
I appreciate that analogy because it simplifies it. Pol- Politics to me is complicated, and then it always has that negative connotation because you think, politicians are crooked and it's all about the money, and we hear those things, but it's as simple as, okay, if we all called about our pineapples, then we really don't have to focus on the negative. We're just calling about our pineapples.
Right.
So I definitely appreciate your analogy, your platform, and I'm gonna think about some things that I want changes in, and I'm gonna call and talk about my pineapples.
That's
So
right.
thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you, Nicole. No, it's so true. Like, it's exhausting and overwhelming for me. And I have I love politics. Ever since I was a kid, came back to DC after college because I wanted to work in politics. So, and I can barely watch the news as it is now because it's just really too overwhelming for me. So yeah, demystifying it, um, when Crystal had originally kind of talked about doing this mom talk, um, that was last year sometime. And I'm like, how was it February already of this year?
It flew,
The
flew
time is
by.
But in putting together After November as a kind of an entity, I had gone really in the weeds of like understanding the political industrial complex and like reading all these books. And, we're giving away this book, which I do highly recommend. I happen to have it right here. It's incredible. And it's all, great intellectual fodder. But I'm so glad that we're doing this mom talk and I'm 8 months into having my second child and my brain is a little mushy because most of us exist in this, right? Like this is where we're at. We have other obligations. We are taking care of families. If we don't have children, then we might be taking care of our parents. Like we're kind of in the sandwich generation where we're taking care of little kids, we're taking care of older kids. Your priority is not always like being well versed on the latest policy happening. And it is appropriate to be triggered when we hear of young Black men being killed by the police. That is appropriate, right? That emotional response, I would never negate anybody of that. But also, if we reframe how we participate, then maybe we can get some preventative action happening so that meaningful change does occur, right? So it's like softening the edges a little bit, taking away the battle lines a little. And I gave that picture of where I've come from having, a white stepdad from Indiana, as well as a Black dad from Harlem, as well as a mom who immigrated from the Dominican Republic. They all have very different, they all had different kind of places that they come from. But there are lines of empathy that I don't think are completely absent from, even if we come from different spaces, right? So I think, CNN, some of these major news outlets have really polarized against each other and also like are taking an emotional toll on our well-being as a country. So, yeah, it is After November is my kind of humble entry into that to give people the tools in just a really simple, easy to digest way so that you can do more than just sit with it, right? Because it's just not healthy to just be at home and angry. So yes, so I'm glad. I will be happy also to talk to you, Nicole, because I love having conversations with people too about how we can impact change.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Nicole. I'm so happy that you're here and that you were able to express that, you want to get involved and I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite. This is
Thanks,
good.
sis. Thanks. I saw someone else come on camera. If you want to speak up, definitely
Hi,
The floor is
Crystal.
open. Hi, Nadesh.
Thank you for organizing these talks. It's always just so informative. I really enjoy it.
My pleasure.
Milagros, I wanted to ask you, so for example, as boy moms, we're thinking about police brutality, even in DC. How do we start impacting our world here so that our boys are safe as they're growing up? Because that I definitely don't, that's something that I think about, like as he's getting older. Oh my gosh, please protect him, you know. But what are the things that we can do today to
Yeah,
help, you know, not just our boys, all our boys?
of course. Yeah. I mean, yes, my son is 8 months old, and I think about the reality of the world that he's living in. I think about him jogging through. We live in Silver Spring now, but even the most progressive of areas, right? Like brown kids, you still worry about them tremendously. And so yeah, I don't have a solution, right? Like I think part of that too is that that when we're hearing the news, and so much is like people who are self-proclaimed experts who think that they have solutions to everything. I don't have the solution to protect our sons, right? But I do think that the micro steps of having conversations and um, participating in I don't want to say the process, but being a participant in the government, right? Like council meetings, ward meetings, depending on where you live, showing up to those things, even taking your son to the police, like understanding the nuances of the police department, taking your son to the police station, right? Like introduce, like, so they know him, right? Like, this is my son. Okay, you meet him when he's a child. You meet, like, you grow, we're all part of in community together, right? These aren't like big entities that are supposed to be like, this is some big corporation over here, right? This is like the police that are supposed to protect and serve. When I drive my daughter to school, she's like, that's the police, they're supposed to help us, right? And I tell her, like, yes, right, and then pause, right? Yes, and so, because I have, she's little, but you have to start introducing. But the fact of the matter is, like, reframing also for the police, right? Like, introduce our sons to the police. This isn't a new concept in terms of like the police becoming a militia, right? This is like something that's been happening over 50 years, right? So, but this separation of police and community, you know, certainly, like, I'm happy to, I'm moving back into the city in a few days. And so I'm happy to work with other folks on this call too, to see what organizations are already doing the good work with doing this community connections. But I think, like, softening the edges of those relationships, because regardless, we want police reform, we want all these major policy changes um, towards how police interact in so many ways, right? When they're pulling over, or when they're serving warrants, or the like. But for our families, in a small way, right, we need to get to know our police officers who are patrolling our neighborhoods, because that's where your son is, right? So that's where, like, it's all so much in DC is about relationship building because it's like a transactional town, but like making those relationships really matter. Like, communities should be special, right? We are in community with our neighbors, we are in community with these police officers, with these firefighters, with our teachers. We are all in community together. And so yeah, that is like my best advice in the short term, but also like recognizing I don't have the answers. But I think so much about After November is like, the goal is about like information flow, but also relationships, right? Like, we have more in common than we have that is not in common, right? So like, if we give each other the grace that we are humans, and that we have the same love for our families, then, like, we have to start making these community connections. So yeah, that would be my short-term advice, but certainly happy to like talk more about it as well.
That would be amazing. I actually, as you're saying this, I'm I'm remembering. So I was also a New Yorker, born in New York, raised in Tennessee. We lived in a suburb of Memphis, and my dad and my parents immigrated from Haiti. So
Oh,
then
okay.
you have the
Yeah.
foreign aspect
Yeah. Yeah.
also, right?
Yeah.
My dad knew all the police officers. Like one time he knew all the police officers, and I always thought it was so odd. I was like, why do you know all the cops? Like, but that's why.
Yeah, he was
And it just literally, that memory just came back to me just right now.
yeah, for sure. Support, it's not an easy thing to say, like I'm not saying that the police shouldn't be held accountable for their behavior, but like we also like have to make those relationships too. Like that unfortunately is the world that we live in, that the onus is on us to protect our sons and have those relationships.
I love that tip you made, but I also want to know, you mentioned to your daughter, like, yes to the police to protect us, and or but you mentioned. So how does that conversation end with your princess?
I know. I mean, she's 4, so I'm not sure how much is sticking, but I feel irresponsible for me to say to leave it, right? Like for the most part, she asks about it a lot because obviously there's police when we're driving to school because she goes to school in the city. But we have taken a tour of DC so that she can understand, like, there are places in the city where the police over police and they're not always kind to the people who live there, right? So that like the police, their job is, yes, to protect and serve, but that there are places where the police may not be friendly. They may not be as kind to the people who live there, that there is an over police presence. So I have done it. I don't know how much has landed, right? But I have started to kind of introduce this idea that there is perhaps a distinction in how police protect and serve based on where you may live or what you may look like.
And I get it, because it's a slippery slope, right? And a touchy topic to talk about. They're protecting, but then they're hurting our community, and our kids are seeing it. So I definitely get it. And I am trying to find the right words to talk about to my prince about, just life and just the fact that he's a Black boy that's going to be a man. And I'm even seeing from 6 now going to 7 how people may even look at our children differently because they're getting older, and how all those things that come with that. So I'm just being a little bit more sensitive to the topic in regards to, because I'm his mom and I need to figure out a way to introduce him to life, also have him experience it, not shelter him but educate him. So I appreciate like the tips that you mentioned, your organization. And there's even an example on like All American, which is a show that I like. I haven't watched the new show yet, but they had a scene where there was a gentleman from like Crenshaw, right? Fairer skin, like my complexion or darker. His mother told him about interactions with the police, right? And then there was a mixed gentleman that lived in like Beverly Hills or one of the more ritzier areas. And when they both got pulled over in the car, the gentleman who was driving the drop top car, who was a little bit more privileged, was like, well, my mother's a lawyer, and like talking back to the cops. And he was more like stunned by like the reaction that the cops had, because they didn't really give two flying,
Right.
F's about who his mom was, where the other guy was like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, put your hands on, the wheel, stop talking, and just guiding him through it. So it's so much we have to prepare our children for. And I like the fact of introducing your child to the police, or, just so they know, like, this is me and mine. We live in this community. It's not a random person when you see him or her, because I know some people have daughters here. So thank you for that. I wanted to see if there's any more questions that we have. No, or comments. And if so, that is totally fine. I'm gonna bring you up to the stage so we can see your beautiful face.
Wait, can you guys hear me? Am I on?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
No, I was just on this topic. I like the introduction to the police as like someone who is supposed to be in service of. And so just as you were saying this, I mean, I have a 4-year-old, and so of course the questions are there as well, but maybe planting the seed that the police are supposed to be in the service of, at least kind of, for at this point, is kind of all that they can muster. I don't know. I mean, I agree that I'm sure we'll have a different conversation a little bit older. The thing I wanted to contribute, the reason why I love After November, is because I've been, whatever, I engage in national elections, but there's been a number of issues that I've had to go to my council about over the past couple of years. And I think it's so rewarding when people can experience politics in that way, where you think there needs to be a stop sign, or you think that there's a bar that's in an inappropriate neighborhood, or in New Jersey I'm from New Jersey. In New Jersey for a long time, there was a lot of discrimination in terms of drug-free school zones. And so there was a big push to limit drug-free school zones to a smaller area in urban centers, because basically in urban cities in New Jersey, there literally is not a safe place where you can technically consume drugs, but in the suburbs, there are. So I like this whole notion of, I'll explain it to you in a second, but I like this whole notion of like politics being this action, right? This kind of this constant back and forth. And for me, I've done a lot of work with school boards, and I was going to offer up this tidbit for people who don't know like where to get involved. I have often found if I go to any body, like any kind of legislative body, and just ask for the data disaggregated, right? Like, I don't even know what I'm going to find. I'm sure I'm going to find something. But if I go to my local police precinct, or I go to my parole board or the library board, I don't know, right? Wherever you go to, if you just ask for the information disaggregated by race, right? You're going to find something that's going to make you say, what's happening here? And then once you're kind of down that rabbit hole, I think it's a little bit easier to authentically connect to an issue that, is relevant for you. So that's the way that I've kind of done it. And now that I have a 4-year-old, of course, it's a little bit more real, but I just wanted to contribute that to the conversation. Here he comes, by the way. Whoever else said that their kid is not, I like a 15-second delay. He will be here in 15 seconds.
I'm surprised my child didn't come yet, but thank you for adding that. Like, that's
no problem.
Really good of getting the information. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
So real fast on the drug-free school zone. I don't know if y'all knew this, and maybe it's just New Jersey, but drug-free school zones is that you cannot like consume or sell drugs within 1,000 feet. We think it's of a school, but it's not just of a school. It's of a school, a park, a library, a hospital, or a museum. So if you think about a lot of inner cities, right? So in New Jersey, we have Newark, Jersey City, Hoboken, like there's no place in Newark that's not within 1,000 feet of a park, a school, a hospital, a library, or a museum. Whereas if you go to the suburbs, there are lots of places that are not within 1,000 feet of all those things. And so what they basically found is that in the city of Newark, there's no place for you to technically safely like use drugs or sell drugs that is not within 1,000 feet of one of those. And so it puts an undue burden on people who live in cities. So by reducing the drug-free school zone, it's now like more proportionate. So of course it got pushed back, but for people who were getting mandatory minimums, it was a really, really big deal. 15 seconds. I'm glad you guys had this talk. I can't wait for all the rest of them. Milagros knows that I love everything she says, so.
Awesome. Hello. Well, thank you for that. Definitely great information. You never know who's in the room, right? Because we all can contribute to the conversation. So I definitely appreciate everything that everyone has said. And, we have the emails that are coming out so that you can connect with After November After as well as with me. So I love to allow everyone to make any announcements about what's going on in their world, right? So I'm going to unpin us so that we can just let it be free so everyone else can talk about what is going on with them. Let me bring myself back up here because little technical difficulties, but it's okay. So with that, I'll start because I want to let you know that this is a total free space to talk about what you're doing and toot your own horn, right? So for me, those who are in here may or may not know that I'm a published author. And like this book is my first book, How to Get a College Degree for Free, because I was able to get all 3 of my degrees for free. And this is available in different languages, English, Spanish, French, as well as Kindle, as well as audiobook. So that's one of the opportunities that I have to share my story on how I was able to do it, as well as provide tips and resources. And all the proceeds for that book goes into a nonprofit, which is called Never Underestimate Knowledge, which provides resources for inner city youth and domestic violence survivors. And since being founded in 2019, this nonprofit has awarded over 25 scholarships for all school ages. So the proceeds from this book and all the services that I provide, be it my educational consulting services or even my speaker services, because I know a good bit and I have a great network and a lot of resources that for things that I could talk about. Those proceeds, they go to Never Underestimate Knowledge. And then my second book is with Drexel University, where I have my undergraduate degree in computer engineering. And this is a legacy to share. And the proceeds from this book go towards the Black Alumni Council scholarships for current and future students going to schools, AKA Black students, to go to PWI, which I went to. So there's great things that are happening with that, as well as the nonprofit, where we are having a cruise for education, adult day party style, and on Saturday, June 25th. So you're able to get your tickets from my website, crystalgalladay.com, or you can go to neverunderestimateknowledge.org. And more information will be sent out about that via email. And then we have our scholarships that we're giving out in November, which you will hear me talk about more as the time goes by. And then remember that this is happening every other month. So the next time it will be happening is in April. So see, this is a sharing environment. What do you have to share? If you have something going on, definitely come off of mute so that you can share. And then after that, we'll do the raffle for the great book that Milagros has for you all. Well, for one person. Anyone else would like to share?
So I'll just jump on. I just not necessarily sharing more because I've taken plenty of time talking about after November, but I would just like to echo what Kylie was saying about just closing up from the conversation, is that don't be afraid to call, right? Like, government numbers are not scary. There's someone on the other end who is there to help you. Calling your board of whatever it is, your local board of education, your local county elected officials, your city officials, state, all of those. When I, at the end of last 2020, during the elections, I had a voting questions website. And so people could like email me questions that they had about the election, if they needed any tools or resources. And so I was calling all over the country, calling local board of elections to verifying polling stations, times that you could vote, all that stuff. Nothing, you can be anyone. If it's a government number, don't be afraid to call it. Basically, there's not a mean, evil person on the other end of the phone. If you work in the government, I'm sorry that people think that of you, but there's a ton of resources to help you with whatever you may be facing. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call.
I do want to add, there's one organization, I know you said let people know if there's somebody you can connect with. It's called PAVE, Parents Amplifying Voices in Education. I was a part of it, as well as some other people in the audience may have been a part of it. And they actually make change and help to foster positive change in the educational system. So that's something that is here in DC, and they have the different boards for the different wards here in DC. And I'm sure other locations have something similar to that, so that you can be a part of. Anyone else want to share some great things they have going on, or they need support, or?
Hi, it's Nicole. So please send prayers and light my direction. I'm currently in real estate school. I'm in the second week. Very taxing class. But this is something that I've wanted to do for many, many years. I attempted to go to school when my children were 3 and 4. They're now 14 and 12 now. So I'm excited. I'll be done in a couple weeks, ready to take my test and move forward. In alignment with that is I'm also a referral agent with ACN. So basically all the lovely services that you need to survive, your internet, your cable television, your home security system, your cell phones, all of those things I'm able to provide at a fraction of the cost compared to all of the other companies out there. My specialty service is Vivint Home Security. I call it my specialty because I built a wonderful relationship with one of the reps there, and we work very well together. So any customers that I send his way, he takes very, very good care of them. So if you or anyone needs home security in particular, you'll get a very great deal on that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. And without further ado, I will do the raffle for the lovely book, which is called The Color of Money, Black Banks and the Radical Wealth Gap, that Milagros is gifting. And I have your names in this lovely hat of my favorite color, which is yellow. Doesn't it make you smile? So the person who is an attendee here that is getting the book is Kylie.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So if you could connect with Milagros in regards to
I
the address
can.
and how she can ship it, you know,
I'll try. I will
write
try
it
my
out.
hardest.
Yes. So thank you all for being here. I wanted to see if Milagros, if you had any other closing words or messages that you want to leave with the Mom Talk audience.
Okay, I really want to be Oprah for one moment in my life. So I'm really excited for Kylie. But I'm going to give everyone a book. You get a book, you get a book, you get a book.
Oh, that's sweet.
Awesome. Thank you. And why did you choose this book? Tell us that.
Thank you.
Oh, this book. So, okay, so I have a confession because we're amongst friends. I have not fully read this book, but I have read the beginning part of this book. It is incredible. I think knowledge is power at the end of the day. I'm sure, Crystal, you can agree with this, right? You're just such a resource person. And so, you know, as I mentioned, I started in fundraising. I believe money, influence, all these things. Money is the core of a lot of things. And so understanding the history of the wealth gap, understanding that how the needle has not changed, right? Like if we look at our community, if we look at social change, if we look at laws and legislation, you know, a lot of that influence is directed by lack of capital equity. So this book just does an incredible job of breaking down the history, and it has been incredibly enlightening. And I just think everyone really should read it. So it's just a powerful book. So I want to give it to everybody so you can have it as well.
Awesome. I definitely appreciate that. And I will make sure you get all the names and emails. But if you're in here right now, you can shoot her your information now in the chat. But don't worry, Milagros. I'll send you their names and emails.
I can also collect the addresses. I can put my email address in the chat and everyone can send it to me and I'll get them to you, Milagros.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, Talitha. And as I mentioned in the beginning, in the top of the hour, Talitha has a Paradigm Business Services company that has been very, very helpful in my world, be it for my for-profit as well as my nonprofit. So I just appreciate her so much and all of you for joining today. And just with Mom Talk, just continue to spread the word about it. And also if you're interested in being a guest on this show, we are opening up for our 2023 calendar. Yes, our 2022 calendar is packed. We have some great speakers coming. And just remember, like, this community is here for you. So come back every other month for the great topic, the great information, and also to share what's going on in your world. So I just look forward to continuing to grow and go through life together, because remember, we are a part of each other's tribe right now. Okay, so I am Crystal Galladay, also known as the Fun Finder for Education, and your host of Mom Talk, where it's created for moms, those interested in motherhood and those that support us. And this is the close of our episode, and I'm so happy Milagros Brown, the founder of After November, was our guest today, and we talked about the intersection of motherhood and social change, and we are going to continue to make change in the world. So thank you, Milagros, and thank you to the Mom Talk audience for joining.
Thank you. Thanks, Crystal.
You're most welcome.